as I sit here in the sweltering summer heat with my shirt off, trying not to boil over. I've been trying to think of a way to share with you this story by drawing it on paper, but as you can see, the visualization is not something that I'm able to figure out how to produce. I'm not one of those clever people who can, by drawing a carefully connected cartoon image, show you a large thing like in some of those amazing talks from TED and the Royal Academy of Art and stuff like that. I started working on the textual thing, and I just have not, I don't know how to do it. Hoping somebody can help me, but I don't know how to do it. So, I'm going to tell you a story. This story starts with you and me, and it is about food and health, and a lot more. So, first of all, if you look at the way we consume food compared to, say, 100 years ago or even less, it has changed radically. We have gone from basically eating food that is fresh to food that is in cans and boxes and bags and in the freezer or in the fridge sometimes, to keep it so it lasts longer, or it has preservatives added to it, or it's dried out or something. The way we eat and what we eat has dramatically changed, and it has become a major source of both problems and confusion. I have felt this way for a long time, but especially recently as it was revealed to me that I suffer from atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of plaque in the arteries around my heart. And around that time, before and after that, I started researching how to eat correctly. And it was very frustrating because I would find a video or an article or something like that, and it would say, this is the right thing to do, and that is wrong. And then I would find another video or article, and it would say, no, this is the right way, and that is the wrong way. And then I would find, this is the right way except for this and this and this. And then, no, this is the right way except for this and this and this and this. And it was just like, oh my gosh. Very, very frustrating for me. But I seem to be blessed with a large enough brain that I've been able to sort out the question of truth versus fiction, or lies in some cases. And I've confirmed this with two doctors who are also experts in nutrition, one of whom is now retired and has many decades of experience as a doctor. I've also looked at many different sources, and I have seen some disturbing trends. And although I know that some people will deny that there's anything going on as far as like a conspiracy, some of the most vocal people promoting one side or the other will say, I don't know if they're actually doing this on purpose. What I have come to see from both what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, as well as what logic dictates, Occam's razor and all that, it is very clear there is a major problem going on. So let me try to lay it out for you. You are smack dab right in the middle of it. You are ground zero. You are a cash cow. We are all cash cows. And unfortunately, some of the people that want to milk us or slaughter us, so that I guess you could say for our money, don't care if they actually slaughter us in the process. Why would that possibly be? How can it be that the moguls of agriculture, of food, would not care if what they're doing is causing us to become ill? If what we're eating is causing health problems that cost our nation and every nation billions of dollars every year? Well, it's really something that in some ways is good in it, but in other ways it's not. It's called diversification. So if you as an individual decide to invest your money, you do not want to buy just real estate. You do not want to buy just a 401k or a Roth 401k. You do not want to buy just cryptocurrencies. You should never buy NFTs, at least not at this stage in the game. You do not want to buy just stocks. You do not want to buy just bonds. You want to diversify. And that is, you need to get a lot of different kinds of investments going, even if that means you have to split up your money into smaller amounts, because if something bad happens, like right now we're in a recession, and if things don't get under control, it's going to get really bad. Like, for example, the cryptocurrency market is getting destroyed right now. People who don't understand investing in the cryptocurrency market are fleeing with what they can get, causing companies that are otherwise solvent to have to either go out of business or stop accepting requests to receive their money back. That is one example where diversification goes wrong, in that you don't diversify, and as a consequence, you can get financially destroyed because you don't have different kinds of investments. You don't have EFTs, and you don't have annuities, and you don't have stocks, you don't have bonds, you don't have cryptocurrency, you don't have real estate, you don't have 401k, or you have a 401k that is actively managed, meaning they are robbing you of lots and lots of money over time, and so on and so forth. There are lots of different ways you can invest, such as indexed funds and stuff like that, or index funds. But this is all just, we don't know. We're not taught in school how to invest wisely. Why? I wonder why. Because it's not in the best interest of the people who are receiving our money for investment, for us to understand how to protect ourselves from losing everything. Kind of like the scammers who tell you, oh, send me this money, and I'm going to save the world, or, whatever, Ponzi schemes or whatever. The other kind of diversification is quite deliberate, and it is used to gain more control, not just increasing the likelihood that you will survive different kinds of downturns in investment vehicles, but also that you will vastly increase your control over an industry or over multiple industries. Now, back in the days, this was I would argue, and I'm not an expert, but I would argue that it has become much more problematic, much more entrenched than it used to be. But it's always been around. So you, as the consumer, you may or may not be aware that the American government subsidizes certain kinds of industries like mining and logging and corn, wheat, soy, cotton, and so on. And as a consequence, farmers can grow this stuff at a loss and not lose money unless there's a disaster. That means that companies that produce products can then buy these products that are being sold at a lower price than they should be sold at and produce things that people want. You would think that would be great, free market and all that, right? But the problem is that there are any number of companies out there who are like, well, we need to make a profit, and America is about making a profit, and so we're not going to look at environment, we're not going to look at social needs, we're not going to look at psychology, except for how we can exploit psychology. We're not going to look at the impact on our employees. We're going to only look at basic economics, money, profit. So they will design products that are pretty much guaranteed to be a hit. They do taste testing, they do trial runs in certain markets, they do all kinds of different things to make sure that their product is going to be successful before they actually put it out into the wider market. So that means that it's beneficial for them to produce products, food, and beverages that are as close to addictive as possible. And unfortunately, just like other things that are addictive, for some people, food is addictive. And there are ways to really kind of up the ante in terms of flavor and aroma, texture, color, all those things. There are ways through hyper-processing to make something extremely appealing, especially once you've tried it. In fact, you may try it initially and you're like, but then as you eat more of it, because you bought it, you don't want to waste your money, you're like, oh, I can't stop eating, I can't stop eating. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I have, and I found it very bizarre. There was a product that I didn't like initially very much, and then I was just like, oh, I gotta keep eating, It was weird, disturbing. So that's bad enough, because a lot of times these hyper-processed foods, well, the vast majority of the time, are bad for health. And the reason is because they're hyper-processed. They are created to contain molecules that we wouldn't normally have eaten if we had made the food ourselves, like our ancestors used to do. If we were all cooking home-cooked meals like our ancestors used to do, we would be much less likely to have health problems compared to now. Now, this is not to say that there aren't going to be health problems, because if we live in an area where it is normal to consume things that are bad for health, and this happens in a lot of places, like Worcestershire sauce, if you consume too much of that, it damages your kidneys. There's a fish product in Southeast Asia that if you consume too much of that, it can hurt you very badly or even kill you. And as the Finnish people discovered, if you eat too much in the way of dairy products, that can have a very bad impact on mortality due to heart attacks and stuff like that. So it's really it was already a bit of a challenge, but now it's a major challenge. Not just because of all the stuff out there on the market that you can buy that makes it so easy, so convenient for you, which is bad enough, but because often these products are created in a way that makes you crave them, makes you potentially addicted to them. And so even if that food isn't good for you, you will continue to eat it. Even if your doctor says stop eating that food, you may continue to eat it. Even if you're on dozens of medications and you're struggling just to get by, you may continue to eat what's bad for you. I mean, there's a story of a guy on, I think, the island of Guam, I forget. He ate himself to the point that he weighed over 300 pounds, I think it was, and he was so big, there was no way to treat him, and they couldn't get him to stop eating so much, and he would, allegedly, he would bully his wife from his bed, where she could walk away from, into giving him the food that he wanted. And so she would go buy all the crappy stuff that he liked that made him fatter and sicker, and he eventually died of it. So let's try to start weaving this together. So it's bad enough when companies produce stuff that they made addictive or very appealing and are simultaneously producing products that are bad for you, and they probably know that the products are bad for you, but it's an entirely different problem that we are facing now than just that. Because these industries, and there aren't really there are a lot more industries involved than you think. It's not just agriculture, food, and beverages. It's also the diet industry, the healthcare industry. It's also the pharmaceutical industry and the pesticide industry and the fertilizer industry and the biochemicals industry, and now we've got companies like Monsanto who are taking control of our natural food by patenting seeds, which never should have been allowed, and it used to not be allowed by the patent office. But then some idiot decided, oh, well, just pass a law that'll allow people to patent seeds, and yeah, that's going to lead to very severe problems because those industries like Monsanto that are patenting regular seeds that they did not genetically modify will have control of the entire market and can dictate prices, they can dictate supply, they can dictate everything, and we will be at their beck and call. We'll be subject to their whims. Now, I mentioned all these different industries, and you're like, well, what do all those industries have to do with each other? Well, first of all those industries generally have a vested interest in earning more money. Therefore, they will do things to improve their chances of earning more money to pay their investors more money, so their investors will give them more money, and the cycle just keeps going on and on and on. They will not generally care on more than a superficial level about things like rights and the environment and psychological consequences of bad business practices and bad employment practices and stuff like that. They will do everything they can to make their position stronger at the expense of everyone else. And this is what I have discovered through all the months of my research, is that there are companies, big, powerful companies, that drown out the voices of the legitimate scientists who are trying to tell us the truth about what we should and shouldn't eat with lies. They hire people, both scientists and non-scientists, to lie to us, to produce false scientific results, to produce videos that confuse us about what is good and bad to eat. I mean, it's incredible. And if you think about what I talked about earlier about diversification, these companies diversify into other areas. So individuals or even companies may own a large portion of shares or stocks of, say, companies in other industries. So in reality, if it looks like they're separate industries, but if you look closely, what you'll see is all of these industries, the pharmaceuticals, the diet, the healthcare, insurance, agriculture, pesticides, fertilizers, and so on, are all controlled by overlapping people and companies, and thus they can unite in a way that no scientist can compete with. And they will hire influencers on YouTube and other social media to lie to us too. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's very, very frustrating for me because some of these companies will go out and they will have laws passed to protect them from prosecution. They will bribe major nonprofit organizations that are in place to give us good health information so that we don't. The funding that used to come from the American government for research now comes from the industries that are benefiting from the research when the research shows that they're right and the other scientists are wrong. So I know that you're going to think, oh my God, he's just one of those crazy conspiracy theorists. No, I'm not a crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm just a conspiracy theorist because there are always conspiracies out there. If you don't believe that, you are an idiot. There always have been, there always will be conspiracies. The problem is can you see them? Can you identify them? And can you figure out what to do? So let me just revert to my notes here. If you have foods that are too high in fat, or too high in proteins, or too high in carbohydrates, too high in calories, they have a high glycemic index and a high glycemic load, then those foods they may be very, very profitable to sell, but they're very bad for health. And so these industries will provide funding to both legitimate organizations and false organizations to lie to you about what's good and bad for you. The food industry, which is very heavily into processed foods, and the diet industry, which gives you a lot of fads and a lot of quack diets that are just ridiculous if you can figure that out. There's a lot of industry manipulation. Even surgery is a money maker for, if you look at healthcare, that's insurance, surgery, pharmaceuticals. That's always for somebody who controls many different industries, or some company that controls many different industries. And believe me, there are companies out there and there are people out there that have this diversification of control. Okay, but in the industry lobbies, then they go to the politicians. They say, well, we're looking for somebody who's going to help protect our interests in the lawmaking process, and if you are willing to do that, we're going to fund your campaign. And they'll actually, some of them, they will make sure that no matter who wins, they win, because they will fund the campaigns of everybody in every party. All the competitors are being funded because they don't care how much money they spend as long as they get somebody in their back pocket in a political position making laws. Okay? There's also the problem of revolving door directorships, where somebody comes from an industry and moves into a directorship position or director position where they can then use their connections to the industry to benefit the industry. Then when they leave that director position, they go back into the industry, and then they come back, and there are people who go back and forth between industry and a political agency or a political position, and they become very wealthy doing that, and they destroy us. And then there's also the problem of that between the false scientific data and the politicians and directors who are under control of industry, we get bad policies. The public gets misled. It leads to death and illness. And in addition to that, people don't know who they can trust. They don't, not everybody has the ability to discern the truth from the lies. And so when scientists and doctors and other people are stepping forward and giving you false information, unless you have the intelligence and are willing, either have or are willing to get the knowledge necessary to determine whether this person is telling you the truth or not, you are kind of screwed. And they bank on that. Okay? Then there are the universities that we should be able to trust. And there are the congressional committees that we should be able to trust. But when push comes to shove, the industry pushes, and boy, oh boy, everybody falls into line. Now, I would like to tell you some of the industries and the organizations that I believe that are or were influenced by these industries, but I have two problems. Number one, if I make claims and I'm not able to back them up with lots of facts, I'll probably get sued. And number two, some of them may not currently be in bed with these industries. And so, yeah. This is beyond my ability to do something. I can take a subject and I can research it and learn a lot about it, but for me to be able to dig up all the dirt on all these different industries and show how they have negatively influenced everything to the point where we are essentially being turned into very unhealthy citizens who don't even know what's true. Yes. It really is very, very sad, and it's very frustrating for me because I care and I want people to not do things that are bad for them because they are being lied to. So I want you to understand that when you hear people from different groups talking about food, some of them are lying to you, some of them because they, like for example, if they're telling you that eggs, dairy, and meat are great, you can eat as much as you want to, guess what? They're lying. If they say, oh, make lots of stuff with lots of oil, fry with oil all the time, deep frying is great, they're lying to you. If they tell you that you should be eating just plant-based food, processed and unprocessed, they're lying to you. The truth of the matter is that ideal diet includes the Mediterranean diet, Seventh-day Adventist diet, the traditional diets in certain parts of Asia, certain parts of South America and Africa that are heavily based on plants, but not processed food. Processed food is killing you. They're not heavily based on a lot of the things that we eat now. If you want to be healthy, we also have a problem that the Mediterranean diet uses dairy and it uses fish. Now, dairy is not actually very good for you except for in limited quantities. Fish can be good for you except for the pollution that we keep on pumping into the oceans. The PCBs and the DDTs and mercury and all that other stuff, it accumulates in the bodies of fish and other animals living in the water. So when the bigger ones eat the smaller ones, they get all the stuff that accumulated in the smaller ones, and so when you eat it, it accumulates in you too, potentially. Especially things like mercury, things that are heavy metals. Your body doesn't have a way to get them out. So, sure, you could eat tuna, and it's always below the recommended minimum from the FDA or whatever. But the fact of the matter is your body isn't purging that mercury. Mercury is known for, well, you heard of the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, right? Mad Hatter syndrome was insanity caused by mercury. Now, granted, they were using it in a different way than eating it, but you can suffer very serious consequences by eating a lot of fish. In addition, we're overfishing our own oceans, and it's only a matter of time, especially if everybody switches to a pescatarian diet, for example, before our oceans are just going to crash on us, and we won't be able to eat fish. So it's not sustainable. Eating dairy, eggs, and meat is not sustainable. We're destroying huge parts of the planet, and that includes water to feed our obsession with eating meat, an obsession which leads to many different kinds of diseases. The list is really, really long. If you're going to eat things that are from plants, not processed foods, but you go to the grocery store, you buy some kale, you buy some tomatoes, you buy some mushrooms, and you make something. Experiment or follow recipes. But if you're doing this thing where you're buying canned and boxed and other kinds of foods that have been prepared for you and just heat them up or something like that, you are on the slow path to death by poor health at an earlier age than it should be. You can also suffer from other things like dementia. There are a lot of details that I could give you, but I guess what I can say to you is this. Plant-based, whole food diet. Don't eat a lot of oil. Better off with lots of vegetables and some fruits and some nuts and some seeds, but you have to look at the pros and the cons of the nuts and the seeds because of the consequences. You also have to make sure you don't eat too much protein. You also have to make sure you don't eat too much fat or too many carbs or too many calories. You need a balanced diet. This is not the video to go into more details for that. It's already been half an hour, and I just want to make you aware that you're being lied to, you're being manipulated, you are being milked of your money at the expense of your life, of your children's lives, of your health, of your future, of your financial stability. Be careful. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.